Arc Junkies presents Weld Wednesday with AWS, brought to you by the American Welding Society. And now your host, Jason Becker.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, joining me today is Erich Posdzich with BDB and Monica Pfarr, who is the Executive Director of the AWS Foundation. How's everybody doing today?
Very good.
I'm doing pretty good. So today we're going to talk all about how to put your GI Bill to work for you. So Erich, you have a really cool story. Let's first talk. I want to talk about your military experience. Number one, because you're a Marine also, so Semper Fi. I never run into that many Marines in the wild. So anytime I run into another Marine, it's like always a big deal for me because we've got like the smallest fighting force, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. We're the most effective, but we're a lot smaller. I think we're half the size of the Army as far as like manpower. So what was your MOS, or for those that aren't familiar, what was your military occupational specialty when you were in?
I was 2847, which is technical term. I was a comm guy, so a comm technician. Basically anything with electronics we fixed or sent to someone else that got fixed. That was my trade. Now, did I actually do it? Not really. I spent too much time overseas with motor T, so I know more about the motor T side of things than I do the communication side of things. But when I first joined, I figured, I grew up in a very, upstate New York in the woods. There wasn't too much to offer up there. So I thought power lines, those guys, those linemen, they made good money. So I figured if I went into something like that, I could transfer afterwards into a similar title, but realized pretty quickly that that job wasn't it for me. So, but that's what I did when I joined. Like I said, I spent a lot of time in different occupations while I was in, though. Okay.
And then when did you get out?
So I got out in 2013 after 5 years of active duty. Just because your typical 4 years, but being a comm guy, we have a year-long school, so they slapped that extra year on to make sure that they're getting the most out of us.
Yeah, I had some buddies that were the aviation mechanics, and I think they had to sign like a 6-year contract because the schooling is so long that by the time you get out of school, boom, then you can actually serve your 4 years. So now that you're done with school, you get to serve your 4 years active duty, and then what they don't really tell you, it's kind of in the fine print, is you have to do 4 years inactive reserve, which sounds all well and good, but you don't realize that you can get called back at any moment during those 4 years. And I actually I was working for a company. I'd been out for a while, and I got this notice in the mail that says I had to report to my local recruiting station over in Tampa. And I was like, man, what's this all about? Make sure you got a fresh haircut, clean shaven, proper civilian attire. And I was like, I'd been out for a couple of years. I was like, what's this all about? And they brought us all into a room, and they had the battalion CO walked in. They do attention on deck. Everybody pops up, just like second nature. And like it's a room full of inactive reservists, And they said everybody's got to be, fit and fighting ready by, within the next 6 months. You'll get another letter in the mail, whether you're, where you're supposed to report to for your next duty station. And luckily, because I had depped in, so like I depped in December 2000. I didn't actually go to boot camp until November 2001. That time that I depped in was my inactive reserve time. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. So that few months from between December and when I shipped out in November, that counted. So that it was almost a full year, and that saved my skin from having to deploy again. Because once you get involuntarily recalled, it's like a 1 year minimum. It's like go home, pack your sea bags, and report to the duty station, and you're probably getting on a plane somewhere and going to some unknown destination. You'll find out when you get there.
Yeah, I had a similar story. One of my friends, toward the end of my enlistment, he had been out for 3 years. He was a personal trainer, doing his own thing. Same thing. He got called back. He was a field MP. I guess they don't really call him that. He was an MP, but he wasn't the cop type. Called him back, and then just for a deployment. But the whole deployment workup, pre-deployment workup. So you're right. You get called back, you're at least putting in another year. going from 3 years being out to having to go right back into it. That's got to be a rough gig.
Yeah, that's a killer.
I couldn't imagine doing that.
So what did you decide to do when you got out? I mean, were you prepared? I know that we both went through SEPs and TAPs at a separations and transition assistance program put together kind of by the VA to let you know about some of the options and benefits. You know, it's like a 2-day class. You know, I mean, did that kind of prepare you for getting out of the military and tell you all about all these great benefits you have as a former service member?
The only thing I remember from that class, I think they called it TAPs and TAMs when I was getting out, was they had the local Navy Fed branch manager come down, and we did some mock interviews to get us ready for the real world, and told us how expensive health insurance was going to be. That's the only things I pulled out. I mean, I had a folder full of paperwork that, you know, I'm sure had some things in there that could have helped out, but you know, it's the end of the day, all they're doing is putting that information into the world, but they're not necessarily helping you. They're not guiding you into it. It's out there to be found. You just need to do the legwork to actually realize what's there for you. They're not going to do that for you. And especially in those transition classes, the only thing we're thinking about is our DD-214. So, you know, I'm not really paying too much mind to what they were talking about anyways. I was just daydreaming at that point. But, you know, I actually started going to, you know, my business partner. He decided he was going to go to school right there in California where we were stationed for welding. And he got out about 2 months before I did. So right before the spring semester started up, he got out and he was ready for it. I was still in, and the spring semester started actually before I EAS'd out of the military. And, you know, I went to my command. I was like, look, I don't want to miss the spring semester. So can I leave 2 weeks early and do all that? And they just kind of, you know, let me do my own thing. I still had to go back and, you know, sign out properly when my term was up. But in that time frame, I didn't have to report to anyone. I just, you know, I started going to school for welding before I even got out of the military, because I knew, you know, you get to a certain point where you understand. And my mom told me early on, always keep your feet moving. So, you know, that's the one thing I wanted to do, is just keep my feet moving. I didn't want to stand still. I didn't want to go back to where I came from, even though it was a beautiful place, just not too many opportunities up there in the woods. So, you know, I didn't really have a plan. My buddy had a plan. He wanted to be a welder. He wanted to be a pipeline guy. And I just rolled with it. You know, I was like, all right, I can do that. Sure. Why not? We always talked about in Afghanistan that one day we'd start a company together. We'd name it BDB something. We had no idea what it was going to be. At that time, we had not even talked about welding. We just knew one day we'd own a company and call it BDB something. So, you know, BDB, it's Bravo Delta Bravo. I'm not the Better Business Bureau, but it's the Blue Diamond Brothers Fabrication. So the 1st Marine Division is known as the Blue Diamond. That's its insignia. So we call it the Blue Diamond. And me and my business partner, we both, you know, we were stationed together. We spent, we got in 08. I think we met in early 09, and then we were together pretty much ever since to this day. So we wanted to make sure that we could, you know, just like we talked about overseas, one day we're going to have a company, BDB something, and here we are about 4 years into it. 4 years next month, I believe.
And when you guys were talking about this over there in Afghanistan, you had no idea that either one of you were going to head down the path of becoming a welder. You just knew it was BDB something or other, and we'll attach the the skill set afterwards.
It was a struggle at first. You know, we had BDB. You know, it meant something to us, but we had to put a PG spin on it, I guess you would say. So coming up with the name, we had to figure that out. And you're just like you said, we had no idea when we came up with this idea. We were just, you know, throwing rocks at a truck probably in the desert, just spitballing ideas. And, you know, he decided he was going to go to school for welding probably a month or 2 months before he got out. So we had no idea we were going to be in the metal industry at all. We just knew, one day we'd start something just because I honestly don't know. We just said we would, and, finally we did it.
Now, the schooling and stuff, is that something that you had to use your GI Bill for? Because I know while you're active duty, there's a different set of benefits that you can fall under. So if you want to pursue, and I wish I would have known this, especially for all the downtime that I had back in Lejeune, you can go off base and you can go get your associate's degree. You can get a bachelor's degree. All that's fully funded while you're in there, and you're not even tapping into your GI Bill. So is that something that is that a program that you were on, or did you actually have to, because you were so close to getting out and then the length of the program, did you have to tap into your GI Bill?
So we had a master guns in Pendleton who was big on education. So whenever you got to our unit, he sat you down. Well, he'd take you on a 10-mile run, and then he'd sit you down and he'd basically tell you have to get educated while you're on active duty. Now, telling a bunch of young guys who are hungry to go overseas to get educated while on active duty, I mean, you're only going to get a couple that actually bite. So we knew about it, but while we were in, I didn't care about education. One of the main reasons to join the Marine Corps is because I didn't care about secondary education. It wasn't until afterwards where I realized the importance of it, and so we didn't utilize anything while we were in. But right as we got out, I dove right into the roller coaster of using my GI Bill and making that work for me. Because you can get about 3 years out of your GI Bill. And there's a lot of things that come with that. But, when you get out of the military, I was living in California, high cost of living state. So right when I got out, I started using my GI Bill to go to school. And as long as you're going to school full time, and that's whatever that school designates as full time, I believe it's the school, not the VA. So if you're going full time, that means you can get 100% of your GI Bill, which is the most bang for your buck. Think about it in the difference between buying, in bulk versus not bulk. So if you take a few classes, you're going to chip away at that GI Bill a lot quicker because you're not getting the most bang for your buck. If you go full time, you get the most buck for your bang, I guess. But so we started going full time, and I was collecting unemployment at the same time because I just did 5 years in the Marines. So I was, in California cost of living, I think I was making $2,500 a month just to go to school. And then I was making an additional $800 a month in unemployment on top of that. So for me and my business partner to go to school, we were able to live and not have to have jobs while we were doing our education. I mean, it was very simple, honestly. It was a very simple transition. There wasn't all that added stress of, hey, I just got spit back out into the real world. How am I supposed to do this? We had that added support of being able to be financially stable. Honestly, it was the most financially stable that I'd ever been for even a little bit afterwards.
Right.
Like I was telling you, after I went to school, I went and was an iron worker in Vegas, making $16.75 an hour is the most money I've ever seen in my life. So, I mean, that just talks about how much the military pays you. But
right.
I mean, they're feeding you and they're clothing you. So, I mean, they're not going to give you too much. Right.
And that's one of the great things about, that was kind of the decision that I made when I got out of high school. I was like, I don't think I'm ready for college yet. And I could have got scholarships, but it was like, I didn't earn that. Like, I showed up every day. I did what I was supposed to. I got decent grades. I didn't feel like I earned a scholarship to attend a university. I was like, you know what? But I've always been a huge fan of manual labor. I have no idea why. I come from a long line of farmers. Maybe it's inherent in the DNA. But I was like, I'm going to go to the military, and at least I'll earn something towards my education. I'll earn a scholarship, to attend college later on. And right now, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. Hell, I'm 38. I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. But hopefully after 4 years in the military, I've got some better sense of, what I want to go to school for, or, where I want to apply those benefits. But that's the cool thing about the GI Bill. I went in, I think it was Chapter 31 at the time, because I enlisted prior to 9/11. I didn't actually, go to boot camp until after 9/11. So after that point, it switched over. I think shortly after I got out, it switched over from Chapter 31 to 33. So that basically means that they'll pay 100% of your tuition. You get an annual book stipend, and then every month you get a basic allowance for housing, or BAH, as it's known in the military. And you get that at the rate of an E5, so at the rate of a sergeant for Marines. And it's based off the zip code that you're living in. So like, I think I was getting like $1,600 a month plus 100% of my tuition. So that helped me out with gas, tolls, food, mortgage, wife, kids, all that good stuff, and then plus I didn't have to worry about the cost of the school. But you're right, trying to get the most bang for your buck. I did, I couldn't go full time because I was working full time and just had a kid. And then that's, for some reason, that was the ideal time I thought I needed to go back to school. It was like right when all that stuff was like the perfect storm. Yeah. And on top of that, I had to go through an apprenticeship program. So I was doing 3 nights a week at the school because I was doing 3/4 time, which I think anything over half-time is considered 100% of your benefits. So I did I did like the bare minimum to get the full benefits. But like, you're right. If I taken 4 classes, I could have got more bang for my buck with my GI Bill, because once you start using it, it's based off of months, not dollars. So,
Correct.
If you can go full-time, put in 4 classes per term, or you get into a full-time welding program, or, whatever degree certificate program you're in, put as much time into that as you can so you can get all the GI Bill benefits. If you start stringing it out, you only have 3 years to use it. Once that, 36 month is up, you're done.
Yeah. And, I was going to talk about this later, but since we're right here, another thing they don't tell you about is you never want to deplete your GI Bill to 0 days. So you have X amount of days, and I forget what it was. Maybe it's every month you get a packet from the VA saying, hey, you have this many days left. You have this many, this much time left on your thing. But you never want to deplete that. You never want to go to 0 with your GI Bill. You always want to keep at least 1 day on the books. Because if you keep that 1 day, you can now transfer into other programs. If you go to 0, they basically write you off and they say you are done. There is nothing else, and it becomes a headache. And this wasn't something I found out until way later down the road. And luckily, I hadn't utilized my entire GI Bill by that point. So for an example, when I became a CWI, I used my GI Bill to reimburse me for the test. And that's just a certification, right? So when you do something like a certification, they're going to take 1 month away from you. As, if I was in college taking 4, 5, 6, whatever classes, I could take all those classes within that month, and just every month I'm taking those classes, they deduct a month. But for a certification, they're going to pull 1 month from you for every certification you go after.
Really?
Now, yeah. Now, the reason for keeping 1 day is mainly for vets that have some sort of disability rating, where that ties into that voc rehab. Or I guess they changed it now. I was looking at it earlier. It's called the Veteran Readiness and Employment, so VR and E. But to us, we knew it as vocational rehabilitation. And vocational rehabilitation is basically your disability inhibits the progress of your current job, and you need to learn something new because you just can't do what you're doing anymore, and it's affecting your life. So you need a new career path or maybe a new skill set. So for someone like me, my hand in welding, right? I can only do so much, rigorous work when it comes to welding, or a grinder for a certain period of time. I can only handle so much. So for me, I would go back for some AutoCAD, some drafting classes. We do a lot of CNC work in shop. We do a lot of our own drawings in shop, just self-taught over the years. So, I would transition into voc rehab just to get that professional level of those computer automated drafting programs, right? So I can do it because obviously I'm still doing them caveman style because I'm not formally trained on these things. So if you have at least that one day on the books, though, for your GI Bill, then you can transition into these programs like Voc Rehab. If you have 0 days, they will not let you transition into them. Even if you rate and are eligible, you need to have you need to have at least that one original day on your plate still. Otherwise, I'm sure there's ways around it, but I know they're way more difficult, and you don't want to go down the difficult path with the VA.
No, it's already hard enough claiming the benefits that you like legitimately have access to. It's hard enough sometimes to get through that and the red tape, and you get transferred from one office to the next, and now all of a sudden you're on the phone with somebody. Like I remember I used to like drive out to Tampa. And I got to say that the VA system has done a much better job the past couple of years.
Oh, yeah.
But when I was going to school, like if they missed a payment or, if I had to get a hold of them for something, I'd leave my house and call the VA, like right when they opened, and I couldn't get through to somebody until, 45 minutes to an hour later. So I could literally drive from Orlando to Tampa before I got on the phone with somebody. And it was ridiculous. It's much better now.
Yep. I'd be on the phone for hours, early days, right when I got out. So 2013, it was horrible. I mean, now I can call the VA and I might be on the line for like 5 minutes. It is night and day different from when I got out. And, I'm sure that every tier of veterans coming out, I'm sure it's the same thing. You were in before you got out before I got in type of deal. So I'm sure it was way worse for you than it was for me, but I still experienced the same things. And that's why I kind of figured out a lot of this stuff also with my business partner, because, one of the best pieces of advice I can give is just go to va.gov. All of the information is there, right? It is all in there. You just got to click on tabs and go down those rabbit holes. And that's really all it was for us. We were just, okay, what is this about? I don't know. I've never heard of this before. I'm like, oh, there's a grant program. There's all of this information on there. And if you can just keep clicking and go down every rabbit hole that there is that they're offering on there, you will find out so much you had no idea about, and no one ever told you about. It's all there. It's just, you got to go find it and you got to go grab it. Like even the Voc Rehab, it's all in there. The only thing, we've utilized outside of the VA is the state Voc Rehab. And this is something, and it doesn't have to do with veterans. It has to do with disabilities. So if you're a veteran with some sort of rating, I think it's 0%, or obviously it can't be 0%, but anywhere from 0 to 100%. So 10%, right? You got tinnitus, you got that 10%. You can utilize state Voc Rehab. And every state, all 50 states have a vocational rehabilitation center, and it's rsa.ed.gov. And that will give you a breakdown state to state, all of the different offices, numbers, director, for you to contact. So our 5 foot by 10 foot CNC plasma table, state of Colorado bought that for us. Because we called these guys up and we utilized this program. It's just a grant program. So we so happen to be a disabled veteran-owned small business, so that's how we got in the door. But it doesn't necessarily need to be that way. You could be any sort of disabled person or impaired. Maybe it's hearing, maybe it's sight, maybe it's something else. But it's more of a disability office, not necessarily a veteran thing. It's just it worked out for us in that way.
Okay. Yeah, and that was something that I wasn't even aware of until we talked previously, I think a couple weeks ago. You had told me that you were able to apply for grants and stuff through your state and kind of get your small business up and running. Not only that, but you can also find additional contracts and work, because at that point you're considered a minority-owned business, which I thought that was cool. I never really took that spin on it. As far as like, a veteran business or a disabled veteran business is considered a minority business. So you can actually, get first bids on work, or you get kind of like veterans preference like we have for employment, but you have it on like bidding documents and stuff as well. Yeah,
and on va.gov, it goes into all that. So we are a service disabled veteran owned small business, right? We pretty much check the most boxes that can be checked for state, federal government type jobs. They need to hire these minority type businesses. They have a quota to meet, so they're actively searching. And as of recently, they are really getting cracked down on, because in the past, they're like, oh, hey, we tried, couldn't find anyone. And they just go about doing the job has to get done either way. So now they're really getting cracked down on, and they're actively searching for us. I just got an email the other day from the Forest Service here in Colorado for, a small job, but obviously they looked it up in some portal that they have to find businesses with those designations, and they found us and they reached out to us. So I know that it's working. But even a veteran-owned small business, so VOSB, that's considered a minority-owned business as well. So you have two types. You have your veteran-owned small business, then you have your disabled veteran-owned small business. Your veteran small business is just like every other minority business that they have out there, whereas your disabled veteran, I think the big kicker there is that the government sets aside, I think it's 3 or 4% of all government contracts have to be done by disabled veteran-owned small businesses. I think that's really the only difference. But they still check those boxes. And yes, it's a headache to do. Everything with the government is a headache to do. I have a small business that there is 3 to 4 of us, right? But we have stock ledgers. We are a corporation over here. Even though we're just this small business, the paperwork side of things that the government makes you do, it makes you seem like you're a giant corporation just for no reason, really, just because they want you to have that formal paperwork done. I mean, it's kind of nonsense for very small businesses, but they also classify a small business, 0 to 500 employees, which is a ridiculous classification.
It's a big gap.
It is what it is. So, 500 employees is not a small operation. I think their annual value on it too is like $0 to $35 million a year as a small business. Something just
so ridiculous. As long as you don't take a loss, you meet the criteria.
Yeah. This is absolutely absurd.
Well, I thought it was really interesting that you actually obtained your CWI, through GI benefits. So I kind of wanted to get with Monica as well, through the foundation and stuff. What are some of the other, what are some of the programs, what are some of the programs that are GI Bill eligible or military benefits eligible through the American Welding Society that people can take advantage of those systems if they have, any of their benefits left, whether they're getting out or, they're coming at the tail end of their GI Bill? Because the GI Bill, once you start using it, you have 10 years to complete using it. And that's also a benefit depending on retirement or disability rating. You can actually pass that on to your children or your spouse or something. So let's say you get out of the military and your husband or wife wants to take advantage. They can actually use those benefits for a lot of the programs that AWS offers.
Yeah. So, staying on the talking about veterans specifically and utilizing your GI Bill, there are numerous AWS certification programs that are eligible for reimbursement. You can use your GI Bill to cover the cost of the testing, not the cost of necessarily the seminar preparation, but the testing itself, including the Certified Welder, the Certified Robotic Arc Welder, the Welding Educator, Certified Welding Engineer, Inspector, Sales Rep, Supervisor. So almost all of our certification programs are eligible for GI Bill benefits.
Yeah, I had no idea, and that's awesome because the school that I work at. We're actually getting ready to become. I submitted the packet I think last week to become an accredited testing facility. So I didn't know that was something like the Certified Welder program is something that you could actually apply your GI Bill for, because we have a lot of past students that they actually want to get that certification. They want to get that wallet card, or local businesses that have veterans that are there. or veteran-owned small businesses or anything like that. So that's really cool to know that those programs are also GI Bill eligible or eligible through military benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. And the the amount of funding that's eligible depends on what test you're going for within the certified welder, but there's a large range of them that are eligible for coverage.
Yeah, see, and like Erich, you and I were talking about it, like you go through SEPs and TAPs, like the military spends like a lot of time and money and resources training you to be a Marine or airman or Navy, whatever the case may be, but you spend about 3 days learning how to become a civilian. And it's like you grab your sea bags, you turn in your gear, and then like you go right out the front gate. There's not a whole lot of, hey, nobody, and like they told me in SEPs and TAPs, like nobody's going to knock on your door and tell you what benefits you have. They give you a little booklet, and like Marines, we don't like to read a lot. I like to color, I guess. I don't know where the whole crayon thing came from, but apparently we like to eat crayons, but that's a whole different matter. But nobody's really going to come to your door and tell you about the benefits that you qualify for. Like I had no idea, like, because I attained my CWI and CWE. I didn't know that even using my GI Bill for that was an option. So that would have been great at the time. I could probably do a little bit more research and see if I had anything left on my GI Bill after I did my degree. But that would have been some information worth knowing. Maybe that's something I would have shot for while I was pursuing my degree instead of waiting until after that was done and then kind of, migrating into the world of inspections and stuff.
Yep. I mean, I think it was when I was an iron worker, we were working on the T-Mobile Arena in Vegas where the Golden Knights play. And it was my first experience with an inspector, and everyone's like, hey, you see a guy walking around with a full brim hard hat, you better be, you better not be doing anything crazy. So, everyone was, all nice and formal around this guy. And then they're like, yeah, he makes, the big bucks. And I'm like, he's just looking at your weld. He's not doing anything. So at that point, I was like, what does it take to become one of these guys? Right. So one of the things I took from the Marine Corps, I had a lot of positive role models where, just like a board, it's all about how you look on paper. Right. And I tell everyone, it's all, when it comes down to it, you're sending resumes into these places. So how do you look on paper compared to the next guy? That's the first thing they're going to look at. What's the difference between these guys? So for me, it was always moving up, getting everything I can get in the industry, right? So, I went to AWS, and sure enough, I saw Veterans Benefits tab right there under the thing, and I clicked on that, and it's like, hey, you use your GI Bill to do this and fill out this form. And I'm like, well, hey. So the only stipulation was, depending on your educational background, whether you went to school for engineering or maybe you didn't even go. I think the AWS goes all the way back to 7th or 8th grade education. If you only have an 8th grade level education, as long as you put in about 12 years of welding experience, you can become a CWI. So for me, it was 3 years. I needed 3 years of a field experience to be able to take the test. As soon as that 3 years hit, I went and took the test. Hardest test I've ever taken in my life.
Isn't it?
I thought I failed it with flying colors. I mean, I was sick as a dog. We were pulling, what was it, Sunday to Saturday or Sunday to Sunday. I was, there were 10-hour days of a guy up there just nonstop knowledge being shoved down your throat. Death by PowerPoint.
I was going to say death by PowerPoint.
It was brutal.
It's like a week-long safety brief.
At the end, he's like, hey, you got a 70% failure rate. So about 6 of you are going to pass this test. We're like, why would you tell us that now? Just keep that to yourself. So everyone, is even going in even more frightened. When I passed, oh man, I was so relieved. And, I told my business partner, he took it about a year and a half ago, he took his. And when he came out, he just looked at me. He goes, you're right. He's like, that was the hardest thing I've ever done.
Yeah. Now, when you took it, did you have to take A, B, and C all in one day, or was it part B and then you do A and C at the Prometrics Testing Center?
All day. It was all one day. There was no Prometrics yet. My partner, he did Prometrics. but I think it was a Saturday. So we started on a Sunday and we tested out on a Saturday, all just bam, bam, bam. Or I guess depending on your group is depending on where you started, A, B, or C. But man, that was, I mean, it's all trick questions. There's always more than one answer, it seems like. The answers are always fine print. And you can't use the index, otherwise you'll fail because you don't have enough time.
Yeah, you'll run out of time. So you got to know where stuff's at.
A minute and a half to 2.5 minutes per question. So you're just flying. And when you're moving that fast, you know, I think the majority of people that fail the test is just because the little tiny oversights. It's not because they're not smart or knowledgeable enough. It's just you're moving at very, very fast speeds in order to accomplish the test in the time limit. So when that happens, you know, you're just bound to miss a word or interpret a sentence just a little bit different. So I was just very glad I never had to, I don't have to do that again.
I remember going through it and having like both hands just holding pages. You know, I've got like 8 fingers and a pencil in the book just because this section is referring you over here. That section refers you to a table. That table refers you to, you know, a paragraph in another section. You're like, man, this is back and forth. And then like you finally go back to the origin or where you started and you're like, oh, the answer's right there. And so it's like, it can be frustrating, but yeah, like relying on the index like I did in high school, not a good plan going in for that. What I recommend everybody, read each one of the clauses, you know, so like maybe read a clause, you know, over the course of a day or two. And just kind of break that, just like 500 something pages in the code book now, break it down. You know, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? Break it down, read a little bit every day. Once you've read the entire code book, just know which clause has what information, whether it's fabrication, inspection, design, general, you know, just know what each clause is. Then go for the seminar. Go take the seminar once you're familiar with the code book. If the first time that you're cracking that code book is, you know, that Sunday of the first day one of the seminar, you're already in trouble. Read that book. And coming from a guy that doesn't like reading, that's one thing I recommend is read that book first. Don't try and do it all in one setting, just a clause a day.
I even spent a little extra money. They offer that online, and Monica, if you can remind me what it is, or if you know what it is, there's that online
pre-seminar.
Yes,
the pre-seminar. Yeah,
I purchased the pre-seminar. I was like, well, this is an expensive seminar. I was like, I can't be failing this. You know, I didn't really know all the ins and outs of what the GI Bill was going to do for me. You know, it took the test, but I didn't know. You know, if you fail the test really bad, then yeah, you have to retake everything. But if you only, you know, if you average out, you only have to take, you know, certain sections if you know, do pretty well in the others. So I was like, I am not failing this. So I spent the extra couple dimes to take that pre-seminar, and still the whole time, I think a lot of the military mentality helped me out with that, and, you know, being able to pay attention and prioritize and go at it tactfully instead of just sit. Like, I felt bad for the engineers there because the engineers, like, I think if you have a bachelor's in
engineering, you got a bachelor's in a related
2
field,
years experience or something, and, you know, we had a few engineers in there, I'm like, you guys failed. I was like, there's no way. There's no, like, the biggest part of that, probably the hardest part of the test is the knowledge, you know, the multiple choice, where, you know, having associates in welding technology, I had pretty much already learned all that. So it was more of a touch up and refreshers for me. But a lot of that was prac ab too. I went to welding school. If you don't know anything about welding, you're just an engineer trying to get your CWI. Good luck.
Yeah.
That is a lot of information that those guys have no idea about. And just reading about it isn't going to help you retain that information. And that was the closed book portion.
Yep.
And I still had, I had 50 questions left. And I looked up at the clock. I had like 15, 20 minutes or something like that. And I was like, oh boy. So I just had to hammer it out and hope, like, I threw a Hail Mary at the end on that, and I knew it all.
Christmas tree.
So Yeah, it was, hey, if you don't know the answer, see your way out. That's what they taught us in the Corps. So,
C's get degrees.
There's probably a lot of C's in there. But I mean, it was a good experience. It actually was my doorway into the American Welding Society, because I wasn't a part of it until I became a CWI, and I got asked to speak at one of the Weld the Rockies symposium here in Denver. After I gave my presentation, Bob Tusher, who is a former president of AWS, he put me on the board right there on the spot. And, I brought my business partner into the fold. And, just from there, we started, trying to get people into the society, help out where we can, and very quickly we realized, focusing on the veteran side of the society, while they still do everything that they do in the section, we're kind of new guys in the section. We've been there for about 2 years now. So we're just trying to help out where we can and bring a fresh new look into it, because there's it's when I joined into it, it's like it's an old boys club, right? So Denver's doing a really good job in diversifying what we have. We have a lot of young people coming into it, a lot of females, whether they are reps for Lincoln or fabricators, blacksmiths, you name it. We have a very diverse section and good participation here. And if I'm correct, we are one of the top sections in the American Welding Society, period. Unless they're just blowing smoke. But I know we were highlighted last month for the section highlight spotlight that AWS gave up. So, I mean, I take pride in it. We have, former AWS presidents. I try to, I just had him in my shop the other day. I was fixing his trailer. So, I try to do my part within the section and try to be the new face that's coming up, because, as people get phased out, we need people to take those spots. And that's probably the big struggle we have right now, is we have that 375,000 personnel deficit that we need to fix. So we need to get the younger generations involved. We need to get them excited about welding. We just need to get them to stay, right? We can get them to show up, but we need more than that. We need to get them to show up and want to come back. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're trying to focus on right now. And, I'm trying to get the veteran population aware, because like we spoke about before, I mean, this is the welding industry is like being in the Marine Corps for me, right? That's why I love it so much, because I would probably say construction in general, we just fit in, as veterans, we're blue collar at heart. Even if you weren't blue collar when you joined your service, you come out blue collar in some way or another. And it just fits for us. And we need to get a hold of these transitioning service members and let them know that steel is the way to go, right? And also, any employer who hires a veteran gets a $5,000 tax break. So I don't think that's something a lot of people know. Like when I went for my first job, I showed them a piece of paper. I said, hey, here's my resume. This is what I'm about. But also, if you hire me, you guys get a $5,000 tax break. So there's a little cherry on top.
I gotta let some of the employers that I'm working with know about that, because I get a lot of veteran students, and I don't know how. I think I had like 5 in my last class, which was like unheard of. I mean, it was like a good portion of the class was veterans. But you're right. I mean, we do have, like, within the welding community, very similar to like a fire team or, your platoon. You've got that sense of camaraderie with the people, because you have a common bond. Everybody's kind of related to welding. We just did a welding competition at our school last week. And just to see everybody kind of ascend on this building to go in there and, whether they were there to compete themselves or just to, support. And it worked out great because I had a lot of people there. I was like, oh, you signed up here for the competition? Nope. I just want to, be here for these students, that are competing and everything, and kind of encourage them, push them along. And I was like, man, that's awesome. But like, I've noticed, we've had issues, not with recruiting because we have a pretty large member populace, but like getting them to show up to meetings. Our biggest turnout is students, so like we may have 15, 20 people at one of our AWS section meetings, but probably 19 to 20 of them are students that I brought from my class, or from our school. So, and my thing is if I can get them involved and get them exposed to the AWS section meetings, they're going to come back as a member on their own once they get done, because they're going to see the value. And I think that's the problem is people see, they get a newsletter, they get an email, and they're like, yeah, that's kind of cool. But like, if you show up, you're like, now you get it, that now it makes sense. Now I'm going to start taking time out of my day to visit a section meeting for one of these technical demonstrations or one of these plant tours or something to that effect. And one thing I want to circle back to is you said that you really didn't have any involvement with the AWS or become a member until you got your CWI. One thing I recommend to everybody, because I get hit up on Instagram all the time, hey, I'm looking to become a CWI. What are some of the things you recommend? Obviously, read the code book. Whether you're going for API 1104 or D11, read the code book first. Second, before you go paying for your seminar and your exams and your books and all that stuff, go ahead and bust out the old wallet and pay that $100, membership for your $12 processing fee and $88 membership fee, because you're going to make all that money back in discounts and more. So you're going to get a discount on your code book. You get a discount on the seminar. You get a discount on the exam. You get a discount on all your process. Like, everything is discounted once you're a member. So if you're going for your CWI anyway, go ahead and become a member, because, hey, guess what? Once you submit all that paperwork and you become a CWI, membership's included, but you're going to get it on the back end. So take advantage of it up front. Become a member, get those discounts up front. And then you have annual training sessions. I know that when COVID's not in town, there's a lot of, I've been to several sessions down in Miami for different things. As an educator, I've been to classes. The Leadership Symposium was an awesome benefit. The Instructors Institute, that was probably by far one of my favorite classes. And we still have a full network of people that I communicate with every year. And Fab Tech is like our it's like our family reunion every day or every year for when we all send on Fab Tech, and it's like we all met at the Instructors Institute. And then, it's camaraderie once again. And believe it or not, you're going to run into a lot of veterans at these events. So I think that group of 5 people that I hang out with, I know that, at least 2 of them plus myself is a veteran. So you're going to run into a lot more veterans. And
FabTech, it happens right around the Marine Corps birthday, right? In November?
It used to. It like spanned right over Veterans Day and the Marine Corps birthday, but now it's moved to September.
Oh,
well,
I was going to use it. Okay.
Only in the even years. Only when we're in Chicago are we September.
Okay, because of the weather?
In odd years, when we're in Vegas or Atlanta, it'll still be in November.
Okay.
Because I was going to use it as a, hey, to my wife, hey, I need to go to Fab Tech, but also it's the Marine Corps birthday and Veterans Day. And, I have a lot of buddies that, I lived in Vegas for a little bit. I have buddies from Chicago. So, it was a good excuse for me to get out, but we still haven't made it to one. I'm trying to get out to one. I think it'd be an awesome experience, but
registration's open right now for the one in September. I've already made my arrangements. I'm going this year. As long as the doors are open when I get there, I'm walking in.
And where is it this year?
This year it's in Chicago. September, okay. I'd have to pull the dates. Monica, do you know them off the top of your head?
Yeah,
I know it spans my wife's birthday, so I'm going to be in trouble for that.
September 13th through 16th in Chicago.
Yeah, the last time I went was in Chicago, and it was that's when it was in November. And it was pretty chilly, but I like the snow because I never get to see it. Like down here in Florida, I never get to see snow. So I enjoy getting out there and seeing the snow because I'm not driving in it. Hey Uber, but I like seeing it.
I like buying new equipment, so I'm afraid to go to FabTech because I feel like I'm going to be broke by the time I get back.
Wait for the show specials, man.
Yeah. Oh, that laser does what?
Yeah.
Can I get that, please?
Yeah, right. Just give them the address. So, Monica, we got some other programs, or AWS is rolling out some additional programs for current military servicemen and women, as well as now it's being extended to reservists, which is the Operation Next. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, and Erich, gave us a good entree into this because he talked about, we need to make sure that we're informing our active military about opportunities for them to get a head start before they separate from the military and get themselves on the way to a career, civilian career. And so Operation Next is a relatively new program. It's not available at every base, but we're starting to grow the program. It's at a couple of bases currently, and it's going to roll out with Michigan National Guard and the Florida National Guard, and then there's some others forthcoming. But basically, Operation Next is a program that's available to active service members once they are within 6 months of separating from the military. Within Operation Next, there are currently 3 tracks available, one of which is welding. And so the service member has the ability to sign up to be a part of this program. They take a lot of the theoretical component of the program online while they're on base. They're utilizing a learning management system, so they log in and they have access to all of the all of the learnings, and then they transfer over to a local community college. So they're transported to a local community college to complete the hands-on portion of the program. And the program, I think, is a total of like 16 weeks. At the end of the welding program, the student has the ability to test for and hopefully pass their certification to be a certified welder. So that, bottom line, when they exit the military, they've already got a certificate, and they've got, what's even more important, that industry recognized credential, that certified welder certification that they can take with them anywhere in the country, whether they're staying where their base is located, they're traveling, they're going to head back home to start their civilian life or go somewhere different like Erich did. They've got a credential that industry recognizes, and already an entree into finding that first job.
That's one of the cool things. We're actually at Valencia College. I guess we're like the pilot for Florida, which I thought was awesome. As soon as they kind of came to me with this program, hey, we're gonna put together this OpNext program. It's for transitioning, reservists. So we have a lot of Army National Guard here. We have a lot of Air Force reservists and Marine Corps reservists out in Tampa. Their base is out in Tampa, but I think a bunch of them live in Orlando. So with kind of like kicking off our new welding program, and once we become an accredited testing facility, we kind of meet all the boxes to bring in military, active duty and reservist military to come in and train and get certified and all that stuff. So I'm looking forward to, we're actively recruiting right now. We're going to get a cohort put together. And then I think that's probably one of the coolest classes I taught was the cohort previous to this, because you seem to connect with, military servicemen and women on a different level than you do with students. There's a lot of work skill or soft skills and work ethics that you don't have to take into consideration when you're dealing with military. If I say, all right, class starts at 0700, they're going to be there at 0645. You tell them what they need to do. They're in the welding booth before class even starts, inspecting their gear, making sure the machine works, going through, making sure they got new lenses in their hood, the wires set up right. Everything's like, you train them once and it's like, boom, they're on it. So like the level of training is a lot faster. Going through the whole process is a lot simpler. And then, like I said, you can relate to them. Like I talk about, when we're doing stick welding, I was like, all right, you remember when you're out at the rifle range, you're going to square your body up to the target, this, that, and everything. And then that's how I teach stick welding, as if I'm shooting an M16A2 service rifle. And it clicks. And I use a lot of acronyms and military jargon, and they just understand it. So I'm really looking forward to OpNext rolling out. I know I can't be a part of teaching because I'm doing the inspecting, but I can still be there to kind of oversee the class and guide them and help them along their path and their journey from transitioning from, the military into civilian life, giving them a trade and then helping them, find a career once they get out.
Yeah, so like you said, you're getting ready to take applications.
Yes.
From Florida Guard and Reservists. Michigan's doing the same. So if we've got anybody out there from those 2 states, the opportunity for them to participate in this program is happening right now.
Yeah, and I think there's one in Tennessee also. Correct me if I'm wrong. Or
no,
Kentucky area?
Fort Campbell, the Army base Fort Campbell in Kentucky actually has rolled out the OpNext welding program as well. So those are the 3 sites currently that are offering welding. Operation Next, I mentioned, has several other tracks as well. They have a industrial maintenance and machining track, and those are available at some other installations. The welding programs will be rolling out very shortly.
Yeah, and I think welding seems to be the most popular because we're also actively recruiting for CNC and industrial maintenance tech. We call it mechatronics at our school. Everybody that they reach out to, they're like, the welding portion's not ready yet, but we're actively recruiting for CNC and mechatronics. They're like, I'll wait for the welding program. It's like, all right, so like it's so hot, it's cool right now, so I guess the more the merrier, the more people we can get in there, the better off, everybody's going to be. And I just think it's a really cool program. Now, Monica, you'd mentioned earlier, there's a couple different websites and resources that, for different branches of the military, the cool website. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Thanks for mentioning that. So each branch of the military has a credentialing website. They call them COOL, COOL, all capitalized. And on that site, you can search for any credentials that are eligible for reimbursement. So, for example, if you go to the Army COOL site or the Air Force or the Marine and I think Navy share a site, and you search for welding, you'll see all of the American Welding Society certifications will come up, and you'll see that they're eligible for funding while you are still active military through the credentialing opportunity site. And they'll also mention on here that, if you are a veteran, then through your GI Bill, you are eligible for reimbursement. So, if we can share links to all of those cool sites, I think that those would be great resources for anybody listening. We already mentioned the VA website is a wealth of information. And then I think we're also going to want to make sure we provide links to the Operation Next website for anybody who might be able to take advantage of that program.
Yeah, so anybody who's listening, if you're not familiar with the show, there should be whatever podcast downloader app you're listening to, there should be a details section. If not, you can I'll link you can actually pull the website up on the internet. I will put in the show notes all the different links to the cool va.gov, all the information for OpNext, any link that I can provide in there that's going to help somebody along their journey, all the stuff for AWS, transitioning service members. I'll put all that information in there so you're just a click away. So hopefully we can make your transition a little bit easier once you're getting out of the military, or you're kind of planning out your transition and stuff like that. Just some more options. It's not something that everybody's going to want to jump on, but at least you have that information out there. If you have a spouse, husband, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, mom, dad, somebody that's getting out of the military that's looking to get into the skilled trades, please share the episode and the link with them.
I guess one other quick thing, Jason, careersinwelding.com, which is AWS website. If you go to careersinwelding.com to the veterans page, all of these websites are listed there as well.
Oh, perfect.
So one-stop shop right there.
Nice. Oh, there's one more thing I wanted to bring up because Erich also mentioned he was an iron worker. I'm an iron worker. I've had a student that was he got out of the Army, took my welding program, took the welding level 1 and level 2. He wanted to be an iron worker, so I set him up with my local 808 here in Orlando, Florida. One of the cool things that I didn't know was a possibility is if you go through one of the union apprenticeship programs, they'll actually pay the difference. The VA will pay the difference, and I'm not sure what the eligibility requirements are. You'd have to look into it. I'll see if I can dig up some more information and post that on Instagram. But they paid the difference between his apprenticeship and his journeyman wages. So if he started off at $16 an hour and journeyman top out at 25, they paid the difference per every hour worked while he was going through apprenticeship school. That's another opportunity that I didn't know existed. I could have been double dipping possibly there, getting topped out journeyman pay while I was working on my degree and becoming an iron worker.
I might still be an iron worker if that was.
Yeah, right? You might part-time iron worker, go back through punk school.
See, I mean, there's just so many different avenues out there. It's just either, I got told this one thing, it's about, getting a leg up in the Marine Corps. It's about how fast you run, how well you shoot, and people you know. That's how you get promoted. So I've taken that into the real world, minus the other two, but the people, it's all about people, so a lot of these programs, like I'm finding that out for the first time, and I've pretty much gone down the rabbit holes, but until someone's experienced it, you might not ever know about it or ever hear about it until, someone like you brings it up, or someone like me brings some of these things up. You'll never find that. Right. It's just those hidden gems you got to go searching for that can really give you a leg up. Like you said, I was making $16.75 first period apprentice. I think in Vegas they were topping out about $28 as a journeyman, something like that. And I already had an associate's in welding technology by the time I became an iron worker. So I was actually testing out of the apprentice classes, and all I had to do was pass the weld test. I didn't have to do all the learning behind it. They were just letting me test out. And, I was moving along that way. And then my journeyman guys, obviously, they're used to having, 18-year-old apprentice, 17-year-old apprentices in there. So they were letting me do a lot of the welding because these guys are all in their, 30s that I was working with, and they don't want to be.
You want to weld? Go ahead, son. Have at it.
Yeah, they're gonna let the young buck do it, and they look at the welds like, all right, he can weld. Let him go at it, and they'll just sit back and count the minutes until they get to pop their first beer for the day.
Yeah. Well, awesome. It was great having you both out. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm sure it's going to help out a lot of people that are transitioning or they know a transitioning serviceman or woman. So thank you for coming out, providing the different resources and stories. Like I said, I'll put everything in the show notes. If you guys have questions, comments, concerns, you can always hit me up on Instagram. The AWS Instagram page as well is another great resource to check in. You can send them DMs. Erich, is there any way you want to plug any of your social medias or plug your company where you can be found if people want to send you a request for work or other information?
Yeah, BDB Fabrication, Bravo, Delta, Bravo, Fabrication. So, bdbfab.com is our website. You can find us pretty much on every social media platform under BDB Fabrication. And yeah, I mean, all those resources, you can contact us multiple ways, either through the business or through us personally. There's a way to reach us.
Well, perfect. Thanks again for coming out.
Thank you for having us.
All right. Semper Fi, brother.
Thank you.
Thanks, Monica. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for this month's episode of Weld Wednesdays with the American Welding Society. I hope you found the episode educational and informative. Tune in the first Wednesday of every month for more episodes of Weld Wednesdays with AWS. Stay safe out there, and until next time, make every weld better than your last.